So the next thing that we'll discuss is the development of the foreshaft.
The foreshaft, yes. My system, my dart system, which isn't mine by the way, I've got to give credit to a deceased friend of ours, Terry Kiefer, who we had a tournament at his house one day, and I was using a different system where the tip of the dart, or the tip was right onto the shaft of the dart. And the darts were nice, but they were not very durable. And when we walked out of the woods course, I knew Terry had missed some targets as I had, and hit some roots and some rocks, and my darts were destroyed. I had 3 damaged darts that I had to go fix. And I looked over at Terry and I said, how many did you break? He said, I didn't break any. I says, I want that system. And this is the system that he had at the time, and where he caught it, copied from, or picked up on it, I don't know. But that's where we started using the River King.
Okay.
With this system, we use a foreshaft.
Can I let me zoom in on that foreshaft. Now I notice that you have a copper tip on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any preference as to why you're using copper?
Copper is the tip of choice for the most part because it's durable. We learned right away that flint tips, even if one miss can damage that tip, and now you have to start resharpening and replacing. This solves that problem. Bone or antler tips are also very durable and would be good, but this is the system that I developed. I cut those copper tips out of quarter-inch thick, 1-inch wide copper bars, and they're just a copper tip to the allowable width, just under 3/4 of an inch wide, with a tang to insert up into the foreshaft.
Okay. Let's. You have an example of that, right?
Yes,
sure you do.
I have an example ready to go. Alright, so this is what the end of the shaft. I also go to the grinder at the very end, and usually that's flat. I will, what do you call that? Grind that off of there.
Okay.
So that it's
more cylindrical?
Smooth and just, yeah.
Okay.
Alright, then we have the foreshaft, of course, and then this will fit up into the main shaft. And it's a good idea, if you can, to try to locate the end of your dart just about an inch or so beyond a node. That gives the dart, or the foreshaft, a little bit more security in there, and it will not slide back and forth if you have that stop. Okay. Alright, so what we'll do is I'm going to mix up some contact cement, and what will have to be done here is I will coat this end with cement and stick it in there, and then wrap sinew, 10-12 tight wraps around that, and then at the end, after I finish that off, I will also coat that sinew with a coating of glue.
Alright.
Alright.
So while Gary is mixing up some contact cement, I'll show you what he was discussing. This is a tip that he's cut, and you can see where it has been cut from the copper. Okay, that's how he gets his tips. Gary, how much do the tips usually weigh?
Oh, about 10 grams, the tip, and then you put the foreshaft in there as well, and you're into 15 or so grams. And all that, by the way, has to be calculated into the overall length and flex and location, the center of balance that you're trying to get involved with the dart here.
Okay.
So those are considerations you have to think about as you're building, that weight is going to be put on the front. So my shaft, if I'm trying to get a shaft that weighs 120 grams, which I have found is my optimum weight, darts of that weight seem to do best for me. So when I build now, I use those darts as my template.
Okay.
To try to reach that dimensions, length, and flexibility.
Okay. Now, when you talk about forward of center, how do you actually figure that out? Do you have a system, or is it more by feel?
The system came to itself. One of the first, when I started building darts, you know, I just picked an arbitrary length of 6 inches for that foreshaft, knowing it had to be some distance out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with 6 inches and put the tip on that. Now for children darts or youth darts or women's darts, I might shorten that foreshaft to 4 inches to cut down just a little bit on the weight.
Right.
All right, I gotta mix this glue.
Okay, Gary's got his glue all mixed up, and we're gonna half this.
Okay, so we're going to take and coat the end of the foreshaft with the 5-minute epoxy. I like the 5-minute epoxy. It sets up and usually takes longer than 5 minutes, but within 10 minutes or so. So we're going to put that in there. Take a quick look at the straightness, but that thing's flopping, so now we're going to wrap it. You get it started and then just wrap that thing as tight as you can. Let's start over.
Sometimes it happens. Now,
That
have
thread
you
was
ever
a little too thin.
have you ever used anything like pine pitch or
No,
anything
I
of
have
that
not.
nature?
I have not, but I believe that that was the adhesive of preference for early people, the pine pitch and ashes and stuff. All right, put that thread on there. Now I have a couple of cracks in the end of this dart, and that really doesn't matter down here because that thread is terribly strong. With 10 or so wraps, there's really not much going to break that. But I will reinforce those cracks anyway to draw them together.
Mm-hmm.
And just, oh, I don't believe that. That's never happened before.
Always on camera, Gary.
Yep. Never fails. So, anyway, what we'll do, once we have the wraps on it, put another couple of wraps on it.
Put it through the loop and then just pull through.
Put it through the loop. Pull it into tighten. Trim off any excess. And if at this point I have some glue left over, I check once again for straightness. And then if I have glue left over, I will secure the wrap. And I do this is the same process that I used at the nock end.
Okay.
To reinforce that nock and then coat it with glue. There's different glues people use. I just found that this 5-minute epoxy is very dependable. Alright, so there's the foreshaft connection, all secure.
And you would do the same thing when you put the tip in as well. You would just...
Yes, when you put the copper tip in the slotted end of the foreshaft, same process. Glue, put it in, wrap it, and then
re-glue it.
reinforce the glue with glue. Okay, now the only thing that's left then is the feathering. And I use the same glue, epoxy, as I do everything else. Done correctly, you'll never have a problem with feathers coming off. You'll have to replace them because they wear out.
Okay.
Alright.
Do you get, what length turkey feather do you start with?
Well, they come in several lengths. Most of them are probably 10 to 12 inches, but I'm probably only using 7 or 8. They come in all colors of this size.
Okay.
And then I trim them down. And again, an arbitrary distance. I come 4 inches down from the nock. That can be varied. Excuse me. And then I have one feather here, but the only thing is with feathers, once you use the epoxy on those, you have to wait till that epoxy sets. You coat both the feather edge, and then you lay a strip onto your shaft as well. Then you have to wait, and you can time it. After one batch, you can see when it gets to the point where it's so sticky. You put it on there and run it out, and it's on.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you don't wait that long, you put the feather on there. Now it starts to curl and turn, and then you're going to be fiddling with it. So you have to be patient enough to let that glue get to the set point.
Okay, so you're not using a jig. You're
No,
just...
you can. For example, a thing like this can be used quite easily, and it's just 2 strips of vinyl panel siding or something. And if you can put your feather in there and secure it in there. It does make it easier to work, easier to put the glue on, and easier to make it straight once you apply it to the shaft.
Okay.
Okay, another method of doing it.
Okay, so you're not putting a right-hand twist or a left-hand twist, you're just doing it basically a straight fletch.
When I buy my feathers, I get right-hand feathers.
Okay.
All right?
Is there a particular reason why you're going with the right-hand feathers?
Well, the right-hand feathers will make your dart spiral clockwise, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
You put left-hand feathers on, now your dart's going to be doing something different, and you don't want to mix feathers from both sides.
Okay.
And now I can't answer the question. Will a lefty like Jack Rowe need left-hand feathers? I don't know.
Or me, because I'm
Or
left-handed.
you. I
I'm
don't
left-handed
know.
as well.
That's a good question. But I just know that I started all with right-hand feathers, so I just stayed with that.
Okay.